Most people spend their entire lives building the wrong thing, and don't find out until it's too late. Carl Jung called it the great tragedy of the first half of life. Not failure, not loss, success, because the goals that drive us in our 20s and 30s were never really ours to begin with. They were handed to us by our parents, our culture, our fear of being left behind, and by the time we've achieved them, we feel nothing. If you're in your 30s or 40s right now and something feels off, like you've done everything right but something is still missing, this isn't a crisis. According to Jung, this is the moment your real life is finally trying to begin. Younger me, if I could sit you down right now, I would tell you something that would change everything. But I know you wouldn't believe me. Not yet. Because right now you think you have time. You think life is a straight road that stretches endlessly ahead. You think success, happiness, and meaning are things waiting for you in the future, just a little further down the path. But let me tell you something. The road isn't endless. One day, sooner than you think, you'll wake up and realize you're not chasing a future anymore. You're standing in it. And when that day comes, the things you thought would make you happy won't matter as much. The things you feared losing won't feel so important. And the biggest question you'll face won't be about what's ahead, but about who you are. Younger me, I've brought some people with me today. The great minds who understood what most people never do. Carl Jung, the man who uncovered the hidden depths of the human psyche. Abraham Maslow, who redefined what it means to truly succeed. Viktor Frankl, who proved that meaning is not given, it is chosen. Søren Kierkegaard, who taught us that fear is not the enemy, but the doorway to freedom. Carl Rogers, who showed us that the life we're living might not be the one we were meant for. And Alfred Adler, who believed we are not prisoners of our past, but the authors of our future. They have something to tell you, younger me, something that will make all the difference. Because midlife is not a crisis, it's an awakening, and your real life, the one that is yours and yours alone, hasn't even begun. Carl Jung, the shadow younger me, you have spent your whole life trying to be the right kind of person, the kind who fits in, the kind who is respected, the kind who makes people proud. And for years you've convinced yourself that this is who you really are, that this version of you, the one the world sees, is the only one that exists. But I need you to listen carefully now, because Carl Jung is here to tell you the truth. You are not just the person you show the world. You are also everything you have hidden away. The doubts, the anger, the secret ambitions you were too afraid to chase, the sadness you swallowed and told yourself wasn't real. These things didn't disappear. They became your shadow, and as long as you refuse to see it, it will control you. Jung spent his life studying why people lose themselves, and he found that most of us are living as half a person. We wear masks. We play roles. We become whatever we need to be to feel safe. And for a while, younger me, it works. But then something happens. A crack appears. The mask begins to slip. You start to realize that the life you built isn't enough. Not because it was bad, but because it was incomplete. Midlife is when the shadow comes calling, and it does not ask for permission. It forces you to look at yourself, not the version you carefully constructed, but the person you really are. And that, younger me, is terrifying, because to accept yourself fully means facing the parts of you that you don't like. So what happens if you don't? What if you ignore the shadow and pretend it isn't there? That's when it begins to rule you from the dark. It twists your desires into addictions. It turns your unspoken fears into anger at the world. It makes you resent others for the very things you refuse to see in yourself. This is why so many people in midlife feel lost, bitter, or restless. They are fighting an enemy that lives inside them. But here's the secret Jung wanted you to know. The shadow is not your enemy. It is your missing half. And if you have the courage to turn toward it, instead of running away, you will find that everything you've been looking for was hidden there all along. How to integrate your shadow. Begin with honesty. Stop filtering your thoughts to be acceptable. Notice what triggers you in others, because those are often the parts of yourself you have buried. Write down the things you avoid thinking about. Face them, question them, understand them, and slowly you will start to feel whole. Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, but it is also the most liberating, because the moment you stop fighting yourself, you realize you were never broken. You were simply unfinished. And now, at last, you have the chance to become whole." Abraham Maslow, Self-Actualization. Younger me, Do you remember the first time you tasted success? The rush, the validation, the feeling that finally, you were somebody. You thought that was the goal, to prove yourself, to achieve more, to build a life that looked good from the outside. But let me introduce you to Abraham Maslow. He would tell you that you were chasing a dream that was never really yours. Maslow spent his life studying what truly makes people fulfilled, and he discovered something most of the world doesn't understand. The people who feel the deepest sense of purpose aren't the ones who achieve the most. They are the ones who became the most. You've spent years climbing, chasing promotions, seeking approval, building a reputation, and for a long time, younger me, that felt like enough. But I have to warn you, one day you will wake up, and all of it will feel strangely hollow. Not because you've done something wrong, but because you're being called to something more. Maslow's hierarchy of needs explains it clearly. In the beginning, we seek security, stability, and belonging. We work to build something solid beneath us, and that's good. It's necessary, but there comes a moment when the foundation is built, and a new question arises. Now what? That moment, younger me, is the threshold of self-actualization, when the things that once drove you lose their meaning, and you realize that success is not about what you have, but about who you are. What self-actualization looks like. It's different for everyone. For some, it means leaving behind a career that no longer aligns with their values. For others, it means embracing creativity, connection, or personal growth over external rewards. It's about shifting from seeking achievement to seeking meaning. Most people, however, never reach this stage. They get stuck in the earlier tiers, trapped by comfort, fear, or routine. Ask yourself honestly, are you still chasing success? Or are you living in a way that feels truly fulfilling? If your answer is the former, it's time to rethink everything. This is why so many people in their 40s feel lost, not because they've done something wrong, but because they're being called upward, to stop proving and start becoming, to stop chasing and start choosing. And here's the great irony, younger me. The moment you stop obsessing over success is the moment you finally find it, not in money or status, but in the quiet certainty that you are at last living the life that was meant for you. Viktor Frankl, The Will to Meaning. Younger me, you've spent years believing that happiness is something you can catch. If you work hard enough, earn enough, love the right person, live in the right place, then finally you will have arrived. And for a while it felt like you were getting closer. But something inside you never quite settled. No matter how much you achieved, there was always that quiet, nagging voice whispering, "Is this it?" Let me introduce you to Viktor Frankl. He was a man who endured the unimaginable. He survived the Nazi concentration camps, stripped of everything, his family, his career, his freedom, and yet, in the middle of that horror, he made a discovery that would change the way we understand the human experience. Happiness, younger me, is not something you chase. It is something that emerges when you live with meaning. Frankl watched as some people in the camps, despite their suffering, held on to something that kept them going. A purpose, a reason to wake up the next day, and he realized that the ones who survived weren't necessarily the strongest. They were the ones who had found something worth surviving for. You, younger me, have spent so much time pursuing happiness, but you've been looking in the wrong place. The job, the recognition, the things you own, none of it will ever be enough, because happiness isn't something you get. It is something you allow, when your life is aligned with a deeper sense of purpose. Frankl's 3 pathways to meaning. First, meaning through work. Not just a job, but a calling. Doing something that serves a purpose greater than yourself. It doesn't have to be grand. It can be raising a child, building a community, creating something that outlives you. It is about contribution. Second, meaning through love. Not romantic love alone, but the kind of love that makes life rich. Deep friendships, kindness, shared experiences, the people who make you feel truly seen. If you have no one in your life who genuinely knows you, younger me, you are not fully living yet. Third, meaning through suffering. This is the hardest to understand, but it is the most powerful. When pain enters your life, and it will, you have a choice. You can let it break you, or you can use it to transform. Some of the most purpose-driven people in the world turned their greatest suffering into their greatest mission. Survivors who became healers, those who were lost, who now help others find their way. Frankl wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." Younger me, If you ever feel like life has lost its meaning, ask yourself three things. What are you creating? Who are you loving? What suffering are you transforming? Answer those, and you will never feel truly lost again. Søren Kierkegaard, The Leap of Faith. Younger me, I know how much you fear change, how you overthink, hesitate, weigh every possibility before you make a move, how you cling to the familiar, telling yourself that one day, when you're ready, you'll take the risk and make the leap. But you never feel ready, do you? Søren Kierkegaard knew exactly what that fear was. He called it the dizziness of freedom, that terrifying moment when you realize your life is completely in your hands. No script, no guarantees, just you, standing at the edge of the unknown, paralyzed by what might happen if you jump. But Kierkegaard also knew something else. Fear is not the enemy, it is the threshold, and the only way to step into the life you were meant to live is to walk straight through it. Younger me, I need you to hear this. You will never feel ready, and if you wait until you do, you will wait forever. But that doesn't mean every fear should be ignored. Kierkegaard drew a crucial distinction between fear that signals danger and fear that signals growth. The first is instinct. If a fire is burning, you don't walk into it. But the second kind of fear is different. It appears when you stand on the edge of something new, something that calls to you even if it terrifies you. That is the fear you must walk toward. Think about the things you've always wanted to do but never dared, that calling you secretly dream about, that part of yourself you keep hidden because you fear what people will think. The only thing standing between you and that life is the fear of the unknown. Kierkegaard's leap of faith wasn't just about taking risks. It was about trusting something that cannot be proven. For some, that means faith in God. For others, it means faith in themselves. But at its core, the leap is about choosing to believe that the life you are meant for exists on the other side of fear, even when you have no evidence yet. How to take the leap? First, recognize when you're facing a moment of transformation. If a decision both excites and terrifies you in equal measure, pay attention. That is a clue. Second, don't wait for certainty. It will never come. Start before you feel ready. Third, remind yourself that the greatest mistake you can make is doing nothing. Kierkegaard warned, to dare is to lose one's footing momentarily. Not to dare is to lose oneself. The leap will always feel impossible until the moment you take it. And then, younger me, you will realize you were always meant to fly. Carl Rogers, Congruence and Authenticity. Younger me, you've spent your life trying to be the version of yourself that makes other people comfortable. You've played the role, said the right things, worn the right mask, and for a while, you convinced yourself that this was who you really were. But let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt truly free? Carl Rogers spent his career studying what makes a life real, and he discovered something most people never realize. The further you stray from your authentic self, the more lost you become. Rogers called it incongruence, the painful gap between the self you perform for the world and the self you actually are. Younger me, I have to ask you something uncomfortable. If you stripped away the expectations, the pressure, the fear, who would you be? I know the answer terrifies you, because for years you have built a life that looks right, but doesn't feel right. You followed a path that made sense on paper, but deep down, something never clicked. You keep waiting for it to, thinking that if you just work harder, achieve more, prove yourself enough, you'll finally feel whole. But you won't, because the problem isn't that you haven't done enough. The problem is that you aren't being yourself. Rogers called its resolution congruence, when the person you are on the inside finally matches the life you live on the outside. And younger me, here's the truth. That is the only way you will ever feel genuinely free. How to find your authentic self. The first step is to stop censoring yourself. Pay attention to the moments when you adjust your words, your tone, your opinions just to fit in. Ask yourself, if I weren't afraid of judgment, what would I actually say? The second step is to notice what excites you. The things that pull at you even when they don't make logical sense. That is your real self trying to get your attention. And third, practice radical self-acceptance. Rogers believed that true growth begins not when you try to fix yourself,